Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I have a video with my top powdery fragrances. Now there are so many powdery fragrances out there, so I kind of took a selection of some of my iconics that have just been around forever and are truly iconic in the perfume world as being a powdery fragrance. I have some cheapies, I have some excruciating expensive, I even have a couple that are discontinued that if you can find are really worth grabbing, and I have some new ones. So I tried to get kind of a cross section because honestly, there are so many good ones out there. And you know, this was a video that was requested several times. Sorry, it took a little bit for me to get to this one in my queue, but here we are. So. Let's get to it. So when you're looking for powdery fragrances, some of the notes that you're gonna wanna look for are iris, or the iris root, which is orris or orris root. Heliotrope also can give that like magnetic force field kind of vibe around you of bubble, that can do that. So those are just some of the notes that you wanna look for. So the first one I actually just decluttered, but it's an iconic and it's Guerlain Insolence. That one has iris, violet. It's got that violet candy, powdery, beautiful, like dust cloud around you that is just so comforting and beautiful. Also really good to layer with if you want to add that element to a fragrance, kind of give it a like third dimension. It works really, really well for that. And again, it is one of the iconics that's been around for a while. It's even been repackaged a few times and gone through Guerlain's different packagings. The next iconic that has also been around for decades and is a gorgeous powdery fragrance that I don't have the fragrance, but I do have the deodorant. And in case you're wondering, this deodorant is phenomenal, by the way. It lasts forever, plus it smells amazing. Sounds kind of weird to be smelling a deodorant, but it is scented like the fragrance. This is a brand new one, the cap's still on it, so. It's this gorgeous musky, powdery fragrance that almost has like an animalic kind of vibe to it in the most feminine sort of ways. I know it sounds weird. It's like a vanilla musk powdery fragrance that just kind of gives you this aura around you. It has literally this cashmere kind of feel, like it's the greatest name. Gosh, I mean, I think this one is like from the 80s, I think. 80s, 90s? But it's by Donna Karan, and it's just a classic, and you can find this really affordable, and you can find it in like bulk sizes. You can find it in packages where you get like the EDT and the lotion and the deodorant. You can get these great bundles for this one, and it's just a great vibe. And again, I can wear this as deodorant, and it kind of layers with the fragrance and gives this great vibe, which I like. The next one is another iconic, and I think goes back to actually the 70s, is Guerlain Shalamar. Now Shalamar, the original, and then there's a bunch of flankers, and the actual DNA of Shalamar is a powdery bomb. Like that's just what the DNA is, and then they've kind of gone on flankers. They've kept that original DNA, and the flankers kind of added an element, is what I want to say. This one is Soufflé. Soufflé de Parfum. This one adds like a little citrus to it, but it's like citrus, floral, powdery, musky, a little bit of amber to it, but it's really like this citrus, floral, musky, powdery fragrance. And they all give this great projection of powder. They're just true iconics. And then if you don't find one that works for you, I know some people think that some of the flankers don't work on them. Try the original. Some people find the original a little dated, depending on how old you are. I think the older you are, they become more of a classic, and the younger you are, they become more dated. I don't know. Like, I think it's just perspective of how we look at it. So, but try one of these. They're great, is another iconic by Prada. And it's the Iris, the Infusions, and it's the Prada Infusion de Iris. Now, I got this huge collection of a mini of all of them, which there's like 12. There's crazy. So they have the original Iris, and then they have kind of like flankers where they added an element. And then I've put a lot of them in these atomizers because I love keeping them around for after a shower or before bed. I just love that cozy feeling of that Iris powder. So there's cedar, there's a vetiver one, there's an almond one, there's a wood one, there's an orange one. There's so many of these flankers, but the original, true to it, and the biggest powder bomb is the original Iris. And this one has violet and iris. Lately, I'm onto the cedar one. I just find it a little more refreshing, or just a change, and it kind of helps with the woodies to kind of walk into fall a little bit. I love these. These are, and again, you can find these on the discount sites for pretty reasonable. You can also find them in Nordstrom's. You're going to pay list. You can find them in the department stores. They're really easy to find. They've been around quite a long time. The next one is a newer one that's pretty popular, and it's by Narciso Rodriguez. I only have like the travel size kit of them all, but the Powdery, the like pale pink, is probably the best one if you're looking for powdery. That one's like a sweet rose, vanilla, powdery musk. I think they all have a little bit of that musky vibe, but the Powdery one, obviously, powder in the name, is meant to be a more powdery vanilla musk one that gives this great little aura around you and is so beautiful. And again, you can find that one pretty easily. The next one is Tom Ford Metallique. I think the name Metallique just threw people, and they weren't quite sure what to expect from this. So when they got this like aldehydic, powdery vibe, it just wasn't really congruous with what their expectations were. So it wasn't received as well as it could be. And then people kind of came around to it and started appreciating it for just what it is. And it's just a gorgeous aldehydic powdery fragrance with some vanilla. It has like a freshness to it. And I think that's the aldehydes in there. It has the heliotrope also, which gives that great little aura. I love this one. It gives such a cozy feeling. I love this one. It also has hawthorn in it, which can give a little bit of that vibe. I think this one is so beautiful. The next one I love, it's a somewhat newer acquisition to me. I've had it for a few months, is the Maison Lancome Iris Dragees. It is a beautiful, beautiful powdery Jordan almond. So good. So it has like powdery notes and like a powdered sugar note, this like candy kind of powdered sugar. You do get like a slight fresh almond in there, which is like the Jordan almonds are a fresh almond, not like almond can go almost cherry. There's the almond that's really rich that can be like in Good Girl. It's like polar opposite to that. It's more of like a fresh hint of almond in there, but it's primarily the powdery notes and like that powdered sugar and violet. And next we have another classic, which is Xerjoff Dama Bianca. This one is a gorgeous vanilla musk. This one has Italian iris. It has violet, lilac, vanilla musk. A little bit of woods in the base. Sits a little bit closer. It's not a bomb. It doesn't fill a room, but it certainly is around you and people smell it and you have a beautiful vanilla musk, powdery kind of scent to you. I think this one is so pretty, so enjoyable. It's great in so many seasons. I love this one. The next one I think people forget about when they think powdery is Laurel Manifesto. This one is vanilla, woody, powdery. I think this one is so elegant. I remember this came out and I received this before I even saw it on YouTube and was like, why isn't anyone talking about this? Not realizing how new it was when I purchased it. It opens with black currant. You know I love my black currant and red currant. So it has vanilla and tonka bean, which tonka bean can also give that powderiness to a base, gives like a musky, powdery kind of aura. That's another note that can do this. And it is that vanilla, tonka bean, sandalwood, and sandalwood really adds that creaminess. I love this. This is not a powdery bomb. It's more like a creamy, powdery kind of aura about it. That if you are in the mood for that powderiness, I think this one is great. And it's also really, really elegant. I love Manifesto. I should really use this more. I tend to forget about it because it's tall and in the back that I forget. I just love this one. It's so good. The next one is by Kilian, and it is Rolling in Love. This was one of my first loves by Kilian. This was the first bottle I bought by Kilian where I wanted more than the travel size. I just loved this one. This one gives this amazing cozy feeling, and it's sweet and sexy. It has almond milk and iris and vanilla and tonka bean and musk and all these things that just give this cozy, powdery feeling about it. It has some tuberose in it and Brett in it. It has a little bit of a tin of like a almond influence on the vanilla, although it's not a heavy almond. I'm funny about my almonds. I don't like always too rich of an almond. Gosh, this one is so good. I love Rolling in Love. This is good, yummy, yummy. And we have a newer one to me that I've had for a few months, and I've just recently, and by recently I mean in the last week or two, really fallen in love with it. As I was trying to use up an additional travel size that I had a travel size and a full bottle. I was trying to use up the travel size, and in doing that, totally fell in love with it. I think it's just the change of season, it just clicked. And then I had used it layering over some other fragrances because I tend to be wearing one. Then when I'm like changing what I'm doing, I change clothes into something casual after work, and then I just spray on something cozy, or if I already have something on, I'm going to bed. This is one I like for bed too. That I noticed some of the layerings that I did were out of this world, and I will get to that in a subsequent video that I have for you on that layering. But that is BDK Gris Chanel. Now, I know a lot of people fell in love with this one right off the bat. I was like, yeah, I really like it. I definitely want to have it. I don't know if I'm head over heels. I have some really good fragrances that I'm in the mood for right now, but it just clicked. It was definitely like a weather thing, and the layering where I saw, holy cow, this layers amazingly on top of other fragrances. It almost adds this powdery violet candy kind of vibe, along with that cardamom comes out when you layer it. This almost gets amplified, and it's just so good. Oh my God. So I think a lot of people know this one already, but it is that. It has that cardamom in there, which gives a little bit of spice to it, but it's also got that powdery violet. It has the iris, the sandalwood, and the tonka bean, giving it that creamy powderiness. And then you have other things in there like fig, giving it a little freshness and a little bit of sweetness too on top, and the cardamom. But I just think that cardamom and that iris powdery violet layered with things is phenomenal. So Gris Chanel. The next one I wanted to mention, but it's discontinued. If you find it, it's definitely worth picking up. And Armani Code is a classic. Armani Code has had some flankers. Armani Code is in the men's and in the women's. I have the original, but these two flankers have that vibe. So there's Satin and Cashmere, or Satin, Satin, Cashmere. The Cashmere is definitely more powdery than the Satin, but they are so incredibly alike. I remember sitting in the store with one on each arm. There's this slight difference, but they're like 90% the same, that I was like, do I need both? Which one do I go with? I ended up getting both because I just couldn't pick which one was better. But after having them for a while, I'll say the Cashmere is a little more powdery. It does have the powderiness. It even has like this slight leather to it. There's definitely that violet candy in there. There's some leather, there's some floral, there's some sweet. There's almond milk, heliotrope, iris, and then patchouli giving it that rich base. And this one is my favorite cozy fragrance. Satin, not far behind. Satin has, even though the end result has a lot of that same DNA, that same base to it, but it has cacao and praline, has that patchouli base. It has pear at the top. It has orange blossom. Jasmine plays a big role. But the vanilla, cacao, praline just give this amazing, that cocoa gives that powdery vibe. It's like a powdery cocoa. So it's not your traditional kind of like violet or iris or heliotrope. It's that powdery cocoa. It just makes it so good. I love this one. And then the last one I wanted to mention, it's not what you'd expect, and it's also really expensive, but I have to say, if there's a house that is just known for having a powderiness to them, it's rajadov. And my favorite would be Nu'a. Nu'a to me is that cashmere pillow around you. So even though the notes look nothing alike, if you were to say Donna Karan Cashmere Mist, which is very affordable, very easy to find. If you wanted to say that to the extreme on the financial end of what is the most eloquent version of that would be Nu'a, because it does give that cashmere vibe around you. And the more it dries down, the more you just want to take this big inhale of this warm coziness. Now, if you know Roja, you can't always go by the notes because he blends so exquisitely well that it's not really about the parts, but more about the sum. But there is orris root in here, and he just does seem to have that powderiness about his DNA. So if you have any others, like you're definitely going to get that powderiness. Another one is Harrods. The Harrods, that one just has this cosmetic vibe about it that just gives that, because that's what you see in cosmetics, especially Guerlain. Guerlain uses violet in their fragrance, in all their cosmetics, their makeup. That's their trademark in their makeup, is having some violet to it. Some people don't like that. They don't like fragrance, but that's Guerlain. And Rajadov used to be the perfumer for Guerlain. So it makes sense that he kind of has this in his head that the women's fragrances should have a touch of violet. But this one's just so pretty, but it's, you know, you can see the notes better at the top, but as it dries down, it just gives this gorgeous aura around you of this gorgeous cashmere blanket that I just love. So those are all my favorite powdery kind of aura fragrances. There's also cozy fragrances, which is probably, I could make a whole nother 10 list about that. Let me know if you want that, if you want like the cozy fragrances. But these are my powdery ones. Let me know some of your favorites, because there's so many great ones out there, and I know you all have great collections. So, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah.